Street.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Minister for ACC and asks, does he stand by his statement, quote, "This legislative reform is part of the government's objective to secure the long-term future of ACC as an efficient and fair 24/7, no-fault insurance scheme for all New Zealanders," unquote.
The Honourable Dr Nick Smith.
Mr. Speaker, yes, the legislation is needed to push out the full funding date and reverse scheme extensions that were introduced by that member but never funded. The alternative was excessively high levy increases for workers, for motorists and for business.
The Hon Maryan Street.
To the Minister, which part of the ACC bill is fair when Te Puni Kokiri advice is that it will have a disproportionate effect on Māori who are frequently employed in more dangerous and lower income occupations, and can he tell the House whether the Māori Party will vote for the bill?
Honourable Dr Nick Smith.
Mr. Speaker, it's also important to recognise that Māori are levy payers, and as a consequence of the quite reckless mismanagement of ACC, the levies on Māori, those low-income workers that are struggling with families. Well, Mr. Parakira Harameia's mind obviously wasn't on it when he was in government. But actually, Māori pay ACC levies.
Order. I apologise to the Minister, but this is getting very messy. And what led to the messiness is the Minister was asked whether he stood by a statement. And he could have said yes, but he went on and gave a whole lot more information, which the question had actually asked for. It didn't ask why, it just asked whether he stood by a statement. Now, I didn't intervene then. But the member then asked a supplementary question, which wasn't an unreasonable supplementary question, and I believe didn't deserve to be treated quite like that. I think the questioner should be treated a little more respect. The Honourable Dr Nick Smith.
Speaker, the issue for Māori and ACC is that they are substantive payers of ACC levies. And in fact, the ACC levy is quite regressive and impacts on lower income households greater than it does for others. And that is why the Māori Party's concern has been as much about the viability of the scheme and the levies as it is the claims from accident victims.
Michael Woodhouse.
To the Minister, what advice has he received on the 12 extensions to ACC entitlements introduced in October 2008, just 3 months after ACC declared its record $2.4 billion loss? And what funding was set aside to fund these additional benefits in areas like suicide, seasonal workers and superannuitants?
Honourable Dr Nick Smith.
Mr. Speaker, absolutely no funding was set aside for those extensions, and it was quite frankly reckless after ACC had declared a loss of $2.4 billion for Labor just prior to the election to be extending the scheme and amazingly also promising cuts in levies. It was reckless, it was irresponsible, and that's why today some of the changes are required.
Carol Beaumont.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the Minister, how can he say his legislative reform is fair when overwhelmingly submitters have said the shutting out of those below an arbitrary hearing loss threshold that particularly affects the elderly is, I quote, a breach of faith with older people?
The Honourable Dr Nick Smith.
Mr. Speaker, the 6% threshold for hearing loss is exactly an equivalent to what is in overseas schemes, for instance in Australia, where they have 6% thresholds. Oh, well, and Annette King says it doesn't matter. Well, let me tell something to Annette King. That is that if our economy is smaller and less able to provide incomes, then the benefits, well, actually what members opposite think is that they can afford a whole lot more social benefits without the incomes. And in my view, the huge increase that has occurred in ACC's hearings costs is part of the problem, and that is why, to be fair to levy payers, we need to get those cost increases under control.
Darien Fenton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the Minister, how can it possibly be fair to force injured workers to use holidays to recuperate in, and won't he even listen to Treasury who raised concerns that was unfair in one of his own cabinet papers?
The Honourable Dr Nick Smith.
Mr. Speaker, it's a very simple principle. Should people be able to receive ACC compensation simultaneously with holiday pay? And my view is our social services schemes were never meant to make people better off than what they would be if they were working. And if the scheme that was changed And this was a change that was only made at the last moment by the Labor government after a $2.4 billion loss. Members on this side of the House say that ACC was never about people being able to double dip with both ACC and holiday pay simultaneously.
The Honourable Maryan Street.
Supplementary to the Minister. Does the Minister agree with consultant advice to ACC that it is, quote, too customer focused, unquote, and that there is a need to, quote, drain the swamp, unquote, to exclude people from cover? And does he think that it is appropriate that ACC is being advised to view injured New Zealanders as swamp dwellers?
The Honourable Dr. Nixon.
Not at all. What I would say, though, is that over the last 5 years and during that minister's tenure, ACC's rehabilitation rates constantly declined. That had a huge negative impact on ACC's liabilities. Members on this side of the House make no apologies for wanting ACC to improve its rehabilitation rates and getting, wherever possible, people back to work and being independent again.
The Honourable Maryan... point of order. The Honourable Maryan Street.
Point of order, Mr Speaker. I seek leave to table the section from the Morrison-Lowe Report to Accident Compensation Cost Savings Review, July 2009, which recommends to the government that it should drain the swamp.
Leave us sought to table that document. Is there any objection? There is no objection. Point of order, Darien, Fenton.
Speaker, I seek leave to table page 28 of the Cabinet paper to the Social Policy Committee, outlining the proposal for the IPRC bill, which contains the Treasury comment. Which contains the Treasury comment referred to in my supplementary.
Leave us sought to table that document or that page of a document. Is there any objection? There is objection. Question number 9, Chester Borrows.